What's up, seventh graders? This is DJ Hoon coming to you live from the Teton Science School. And I am just going to give you a quick rundown on your Ready page this week, which is about the carbon cycle. So first, our what a cycle is. You guys have had plenty of experience studying cycles, but a cycle is a periodically repeated sequence of events. That just means that these events happen usually in a certain order, and they repeat themselves over and over again. It does not mean that we are talking about motorcycles. Some examples you guys may have already learned about in science class, because there are a lot of cycles on Earth, is the energy cycle that travels through ecosystems. So you may have learned this in sixth grade. We have abiotic chemicals, because there's abiotic and biotic factors in cycles. And through photosynthesis, they are made into energy and into new elements by producers, or usually our plants. And then those are eaten by consumers, usually herbivores first, and then again eaten by carnivores from your energy pyramids. And eventually those consumers die and are broken down by decomposers back into those abiotic chemicals. So as you can see, it is a repeated process, moving different materials through a cycle. Another cycle that you may have studied is the rock cycle, which again is different materials being moved throughout Earth by different sorts of energy. So we have rocks that start by being formed through eruptions and volcanoes. They become sedimentary rock through sedimentation, through compaction and cementation. They can get weathered and eroded, transported, and metamorphosized and melted and back to being erupted. Again, you can see that it kind of forms a little wheel, like a cycle. It's just a repeated process over and over again. Another type of cycle that we've learned about more recently is a life cycle. So organisms that are biotic, or that are considered alive because they meet the 6 characteristics, have to grow and develop. And to do so, they usually go through a life cycle. Frogs were a good example because they have many steps in their life cycle. Finally, the most recent one we just did was the water cycle, which you guys showed your understanding for so well with your engineering challenges. And as you can see again, the water molecule, which is H2O, is constantly cycled throughout our Earth system based on different energies, either the sunlight or through gravity. So what we're going to be talking about today is actually a cycle that moves the element of carbon through our atmosphere, through living things, through the Earth, and back into the atmosphere in a cycle. If you remember, carbon is one of the most abundant elements in the universe and very abundant on Earth. You may have heard the term a carbon-based life form, and that is because it is used so predominantly in life, which we are going to talk about a little bit. So you can pause this video at any time, so you can make some drawings on your Ready page, or you can watch it all the way through and just go back to the slides you really like. I'll share the slideshow with you. So first, let's start with the way that carbon is mainly used in the carbon cycle. So there's a formula here, a chemical formula. And if you remember, the capital letters represent different elements, and the subscript or letter down below is how many of that element there are. Something new for you guys is there might be a number in front, and that just means that there are that many of that molecule. For example, if you look at the left side, you'll see C6H12O6. So there's 6 carbon elements, there are 6 atoms of hydrogen, and there are 6 atoms of oxygen. Now on that side of the equation, we also have 6 O2s. This means there are 6 separate oxygen molecules in this equation. So the main way this works is on the left we have C6H12O6, which is also called sugar or glucose. And when sugar is added with some oxygen, we call that respiration. Respiration is a carbon out type of equation. So as you can see on the left, there is some carbon stored in glucose, but through respiration, cellular respiration, it is then released. So if you look on the right, you will see when we have the reaction of glucose and some oxygen, and it is cellularly respirated, it comes out as 6 CO2 molecules and 6 water molecules. CO2 stands for carbon dioxide, and H2O, of course, stands for the water, like our water cycle. Now, what's pretty interesting about the carbon cycle is it can go back the other way. This formula can be reversed. So if we put in 6 water molecules and we put in 6 carbon dioxide molecules with the addition of a little sunlight and the process of photosynthesis, which is putting together using light, you actually come out with 6 oxygen molecules and a molecule of glucose, C6H12O6. Oops. So let's go a little more depth on how this works with life, because we've just been studying life. So you guys have all learned that most energy on Earth comes from the sun, our little happy sun down there. And with sunlight and some water, which all plants need, they also take in CO2. Plants do this through photosynthesis, and they use it to create oxygen and glucose. So with some sunlight in a plant and some water, you get glucose and oxygen. So what actually causes this inside of the plant is in a plant cell. We learned about the organelles, and plant cells have a very special organelle. It's that little green one in the top. So inside of this little green organelle, which is called a chloroplast, we actually have chlorophyll. Chlorophyll are these little stacks of dime-looking green cylinders, and through chlorophyll, photosynthesis can happen. So it actually takes light energy and causes this chemical reaction between H2O molecules and CO2 molecules to make energy for the plant and stored energy in the glucose, and it releases some oxygen. So in this process on our Earth, we actually have something that we call carbon sinks. Carbon sinks are places where carbon is stored. So I'm going to go over a few examples of these on our planet. These are things that use photosynthesis to make glucose, which stores carbon in that sugar, or other ways that carbon, the element itself, can be stored on our planet. So the first example is with animals. Because we have consumers, they actually eat the producers, which have the stored glucose, and they incorporate the carbon into their body. All of us have carbon in us right now. That's why we're carbon-based life forms. And eventually, because we are life, all life dies, just like this dead rat here. So the animal dies, taking that carbon with it when it gets decomposed. Now, when dead animals die, sometimes they get buried. This is an example of a swamp a long time ago. And when these plants die, over time, the glucose inside of them gets buried. Okay, it gets buried underneath the ground. And with pressure from gravity of the earth above it and the heat from the mantle, it actually can turn into coal, which all of you might know we burn for energy. But coal has a lot of carbon. It's pure carbon that has been compressed down from dead plants. Now, this is not the only type of photosynthetic life form. So I'm going to show you another example, which are these little guys called photoplankton. Now, photoplankton are actually kind of an animal in a way because they move, but they also are producers because they use photosynthesis to take in carbon dioxide and using the water around them to make glucose and oxygen. Now, what's really cool about these guys is that they have shells made out of carbon called calcium carbonate. Okay, now when they die, they can get buried under the earth through something called convergence. So this video will show you really quick. When they die, they sink to the bottom of the ocean and they get sent under the earth. Again, storing carbon in the earth.